combining an eclectic mixture of sights, history, good food, and of course drink. A weekend city break is ideal for a quick getaway, and in my opinion, this is one of the best cities for it. I'm Joe. I'm going to be taking you on a 72-hour trip to one of my favourite cities and one you should put straight on your list. This is the Hungarian capital. This is Budapest. Just over a 2-hour flight from the UK brings me to Budapest, a city that's smack bang in the heart of Central Europe. The city of Budapest was formed in 1873 when the three separate cities of Óbuda, Buda and Pest united, forming the city as we know it today. Budapest then became the co-capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire alongside Vienna until its dissolution following the First World War in 1918. This importance propelled Budapest to become the largest city in Hungary, and it's now the second largest city on the Danube and the 9th largest in the European Union. Budapest is one of 4 European capital cities that sit on the River Danube, the others being Vienna in Austria, Bratislava in Slovakia, and Belgrade in Serbia. Anyway, that's enough of the facts. Let's get on with the weekend. I'm checking in for 3 nights at the 4-star superior Continental Hotel Budapest, smack in the centre of the city's famed Jewish district. From the street level, this imposing facade leads into a classically styled reception area that had a bar above it on a mezzanine level. The classical style was emulated throughout the whole hotel, alongside little Art Deco touches. On the roof was an indoor and an outdoor pool, as well as a gym and 2 saunas as well. Into the room, which for me was a standard room. These can be picked up for as little as £65 a night, and that classic Art Deco style continues to run throughout, with little touches like the patterned wallpaper and bedside lamps really standing out. Room facilities were good. There was lots of bottled water, tea and coffee, a minibar, and there was a safe and bathrobe in the wardrobe too. Room size was fine for 1 adult. The bathroom, on the other hand, that was pretty tight. I'm sure I could have sat on the toilet and showered at the same time. Anyway, how's the bed? Very comfy beds, I can confirm that. I'm really excited to be back in Budapest. It's one of my favourite cities that I've ever been to. Gonna get myself a relatively early night though. Should be good to go out tomorrow and go see some sights. Did I manage to get an early night? Absolutely not. Instead, I stayed up until the early hours downing cheap pints like they were going out of fashion with a few Irish guys I met in a bar around the corner. Anyway, the hangover isn't going to stop me seeing the city, and it's time for a caffeine fix. Like what you see so far? Don't forget to hit subscribe for more travel guides, vlogs and content. Drop us a like too if you want. After a carb-filled breakfast to soak up last night's cheap booze and fuel me up for the day, it was time to hit the streets. The plan was to cross over the chain bridge and walk along the top of Buda Castle, but as the chain bridge was closed for refurbishment works, this meant a 1.5-mile detour across the Elizabeth Bridge instead. I've since found out that the chain bridge is due to reopen to pedestrians in autumn 2023. The views from Buda Castle are decent, and more importantly they're free. It's really nice looking out over the chain bridge and the Parliament building, but the area around Fisherman's Bastion was disappointing and far too crowded. I'm all for getting a picture for Instagram, but it was almost impossible to battle the throng of people posing for exactly the same photo in the same location. Not to mention those getting in the way doing TikTok dances, but each to their own. I booked a communist history walking tour through Airbnb, which I'll link below, and opted to cross the river by metro, with a 24-hour travel pass coming in at 2,500 forint. This tour of the city's history from 1945 through to 89 was informative and interesting, focusing on the many conflicting monuments of Liberty Square, including this quirky one of former US President Ronald Reagan. Funnily enough, Ronald Reagan never came to Budapest. In fact, he never set foot in Hungary at all. So then, why does he have a statue? Well, it's to do with this monument, which is a Soviet war memorial to commemorate the Red Army liberators of Budapest following World War II, liberators who then became occupiers. This monument to the Red Army sits directly opposite the US Embassy, and even though Reagan never visited Budapest or Hungary, this statue was put up almost as a counter-statue to largely recognise his hardline stance against the Soviet Union and contribution to the fall of the wall in '89. George Bush Sr. gets a statue too, because he was president at the time of the collapse of the Soviet Union, and he did actually visit Hungary during his presidency in 1989. The tour ended with a visit to a cafe bar that had remained largely unchanged since the 1960s, with 60s prices too. Finding good places to eat can be difficult when travelling, and I find it even harder on city breaks given there's so much choice. I'd booked a table at Hungarian Bistro based solely on reviews, thinking that this many people couldn't be wrong. And they weren't wrong. If you want to eat here for traditional Hungarian cuisine, you must book well in advance. In a quaint side street setting, the food and service were both excellent, but this was a pricey meal by Budapest standards. The hearty meal was topped off with this chocolate cake, which, well, I'll let my face say the rest. Yeah, it's really good. I think I've got Good morning. I wish I could say that I slept well last night, but I slept terribly. I actually feel worse than what I did yesterday, if that's even possible, but the show must go on. As hard as it is to drag myself out of bed after a shocking night's sleep, it's time to bang the brashers on, have breakfast and hit the streets. This morning I booked a tour of the city's famous Jewish district through Airbnb, which I'll link below. This tour took in the synagogues of the district, including the Dohany Street Synagogue, which is the world's second largest, the Rumbach Street Synagogue, and even the walls of the Budapest Ghetto, a Nazi ghetto which existed between 1944 and 45. After the tour, it was time for a caffeine stop, where I also managed to satisfy my sweet tooth. The tiredness by now was really kicking in, and I needed something to give me a bit of a boo up the backside. Line M1 of the Budapest Metro is an attraction in itself. Although most would overlook this, it's actually the second oldest underground railway line in the world after London. The stations are really well preserved, and these specially designed trains run on the line that's known to locals as the Small Underground. Running just beneath the famous Andrassy Avenue, the line was built to link the city centre with Budapest City Park, and many attractions such as the zoo, thermal baths and Hero Square can be accessed easily using this line. 60 Andrassy Avenue is arguably the most infamous address in Hungary. This imposing corner plot on a beautiful tree-lined boulevard was used as the headquarters for the fascist Arrow Cross Party and, following World War II, the AVH, the Hungarian secret police. Today the House of Terror stands as a museum with exhibits related to the fascist and communist regimes and as a memorial to the victims of state terror. I highly recommend the audio guide, which comes in at 6,000 forint. It had been a thought-provoking and sobering day, learning about some of the more confronting parts of recent history. A swim, some time in the sauna, and a recharge of the batteries was needed. Budapest is famous for its ruin bars, crumbling buildings in the Jewish district that have been saved and converted. Simplicate is the most famous one, famed for its funky, Insta-worthy interior. It also hosts daytime flea markets, live music and DJs. Queues at night can be long, I saw them down the street, but if you go a bit earlier, like I went at 6 PM for a pre-dinner beer, you'll be able to just walk straight in. It's a tourist trap, so expect to pay more than the average for a beer, but it's great to have a look around. For those interested, this was the queue later that night, which was starting to stretch down the street. Good morning. I am feeling fresher today, thank God. It's my last day in Budapest, so today I plan on going up St. Stephen's Basilica. It's pretty early, it's 7:15, so I intend to be one of the first people up there. And I was one of the first people there. St. Stephen's Basilica opened at 9 AM and I was the second person to buy a ticket that morning, with entrance to the Basilica and the panoramic rooftop terrace coming in at just over 4,500 forint. Named in honour of Stephen, the first king of Hungary, this beautiful basilica is every bit impressive, and the 360-degree views over Budapest are so worth the extra cost for the terrace. The Hungarian Parliament building is one of the main sights of the city. It's so huge you literally can't miss it. Completed in 1904, this grand Gothic revival building is the largest in Hungary and is the third largest legislative building in the world after the Pentagon in Washington DC and Bucharest's Palace of Parliament. Tours can be booked, but I'll save that for another trip. Honestly, I'm more than happy to gaze up in awe at this stunning building from Kossuth Square outside. Steps away from the Parliament sits one of Budapest's most poignant memorials. The Shoes on the Danube bank is a memorial to honour the Jewish victims massacred by Arrow Cross militia. These executions took place in late 1944 to early 1945, when Jews were taken from the Budapest ghetto to the banks of the Danube. Here, they were ordered to take off their shoes and were shot dead, their bodies fallen into the river Danube below and taken away by the current. And with that, my trip drew to a close. There was just enough time for one final walk along the Danube down to the chain bridge and a quick beer before heading to the airport. I hope you've enjoyed coming with me on this 3-day trip to Budapest. If you've made it this far, do drop us a like and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.